In this video, I'm going to talk about the reasons why I started intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting, to put it simply, is when you have a window of time when you eat and you have a window of time when you don't eat. I am not the person, this is not the place to get advice on how to do intermittent fasting. While I will be talking about it, I have no expertise in it other than what I am teaching myself and learning. But I'm not the person to get information about that. While what this is about is for me to share my whys, what worked for me, to really get you to understand that you have to test things out for yourself. So my experience differ. You can watch some other YouTube videos. My experience differ from that of others. And that's a good thing because I went after what is uniquely me. And that's what you need to do. So it's good to get lots of information and data points and examples, but then understand what works for you and what your reasons for doing it are. So what I'm sharing with you in this particular video are my reasons why I got into intermittent fasting. It is something that I heard about 2-3 years ago. And the reason why I got on my radar is because of all of the health benefits that are tied to it. Now, if you watch the What Happened video, you'll remember seeing this, where, between 2018 and 2020, I put on quite a bit of weight, and a lot of it was tied to stress and lots of emotional eating. So in that window of time is when I learned about intermittent fasting, and it's when I try to apply it. Now, I'm eating sugar, lots of carbs, processed food, not like a huge amount of processed food, but lots of cookies, lots of cakes, frozen pizzas. I have a crappy diet, let's just say it. I had a crappy diet during that time. So of course, when I'm trying to do intermittent fasting, my body is like not having it. I'm getting so angry because I don't have food. I'm like, I'm ready to eat my arm off. I can't focus. All I think about is food. So try as I might to do intermittent fasting, it just wasn't working. So I would try it wouldn't work. I would quit for a while, and then I would try again. It wouldn't work. I would quit for a while. And a lot of times I was doing it wrong because I was trying to go straight from a 16 fasting, 8 hours feeding window. And it just wasn't working. And quite frankly, I didn't have a strong, powerful why at that time when I was trying it. But when people were talking about it and they were successfully doing it, I would kind of get jealous, I would get ticked off, I would get upset, and I would tell them, well, you know what, it's not for everyone, it doesn't work for everybody. So that was kind of, because it wasn't working for me, that was the angry me reacting to the fact that they were able to do it, knowing that deep down I was jealous and that I really wanted to be able to do it. So I was also being stubborn. Now, it's the fact that I was stubborn about it that ended up paying off for me. So towards the end, I would say September-ish, around my birthday in 2020, I realized I really got to get a hold of myself. And when I say a hold of myself, I got to get a hold of my emotional eating. Now, emotional eating is tied to emotions. So whether I was happy, sad, depressed, or upset, I turned to food. To celebrate, I turned to food. To bribe myself to write the books, write the course, create content, or do anything that, required brain power, food. 2-pound bags of M&Ms, each chapter I wrote or course content I created, and lots of chocolate chip cookies, detours to go to Walmart to buy their chocolate chip cookies, and entire cakes, entire frozen pizza that I would eat by myself. Not good stuff, but it was the way that I bribed myself. It's the way that I reward myself, and it's definitely how I soothed and comforted myself. So when stress, especially during COVID and all the pivots and all the change, and eating calmed me down and made me feel better. Now, I know that's not the answer. I also know that controlling your emotion is part of handling your emotional eating. However, knowing myself, I came up with a solution. If I shrunk the windows of time that I ate, then when I was able to eat, then I could eat those foods. So if I felt emotional, then I would have to eat my emotions during a certain window of time. So that's actually how I got started with intermittent fasting, was that I was determined to use it to narrow down the amount of time that I could actually emotional eat. And because the way that I'm wired, once I had it down, like, okay, for the next 12 hours, I'm not eating, then I'm not emotionally eating. If I'm allowed to eat, then depriving myself from emotional eating was more difficult. If I can't eat, I can't emotional eat, right? So that's a complete zero stop in my mind, and I can accept that and I can live with that. So that's how I started. I started with 12 hours of eating, 12 hours of no eating, and I could eat anything I wanted within those 12 hours. I'll make another video to talk more about the progression of my intermittent fasting, but in this video, the first big point, the first big reason for me to get into intermittent fasting was to get my emotional eating under control. Another thing, little sidebar detour, another thing that I've done to help with my emotional eating is because emotions are part of that. And that has been, to some extent, I put a lot of things on the back burner in order for me to not feel the stress and not feel the pressure, so that my emotions were easier to manage. Therefore, I was not inclined to emotionally eat, which then make the intermittent fasting a little easier. And I also started doing breathing exercises. More specifically, I started doing the Wim Hof method, right? So did the Wim Hof method and more meditating and doing different things to get my emotions under control so that I would not run and go towards food. So that is the first and the biggest primary reason why I started doing intermittent fasting. The second reason why I knew it was time for me to really commit myself to intermittent fasting is what actually initially turned me on to it, which is the entire cell rejuvenation process. I later learned it's called autophagy or whatever it's called. Not a scientist, not a doctor. Recommend doing your own research again. But what I understand about it is that basically when you're intermittent fasting, which is really not necessarily true, it's more when you're fasting. So you need more extended fasts to reach autophagy. Kind of learned that later on in time, which is why now I do 24-hour fasts and I'm working my way to 48, 72-hour fasts because I really want to get to that benefit. The benefit being that your body uses damaged cells for fuel. So it cleans you out of damaged cells, which makes the room and the space for you to create new cells. So it's tapping in to the fountain of youth. So I was definitely interested in doing that, but it's also tied to, again, where I was really deciding to do this was around September 2020. We are months into COVID at that point, and I'm doing, I'm reading up on COVID, and it just seemed like I needed to switch my mindset and do everything possible for what was best for my health. And intermittent fasting and getting to the cell rejuvenation was top of that. So that was my number 2 reason why I knew it was time to get into intermittent fasting. Dang it. The third reason has to do with what I was hearing other people claim was happening to them while in intermittent fasting. That being that they had a lot more energy. Now, again, I had tried intermittent fasting before because people claim it gave them more energy, and that was not what it felt like for me. It was the contrary. It made me more drained and more tired, and fighting the food craving was exhausting me. But I was also at such a desperate point at the end of September, October, November, where I had days, 4 days at a time, that I would just be dead on the couch doing nothing. Now, it was tied to stress and being a little depressed, but it was just lacked energy, lacked the ability to inspire myself, motivate myself, and get me going. Let me tell you something. When you have energy, just natural energy, then you don't have to dig so deep for motivation. You just simply happen to have the energy. And I don't think in my life I actually ever experienced that. But as people were talking about it, I'm like, I want that too. I want it. Now, I've since then done a lot more research and learned a lot. So it's not so much the intermittent fasting that gets you that energy. It's the stabilization of your insulin level. It's becoming insulin sensitive, fat adapted. So that's why I've moved since since being better at intermittent fasting, I've since then moved into keto to get the additional benefits, and that big benefit being the energy. And next video, I'm gonna get more into that, but let me just tell you that I finally tapped into the power source, the energy of intermittent fasting and the keto diet, and woo, it is what everybody else claims it to be. It's just a long road getting to it. But that was my third reason for wanting to do this. The fourth reason, I didn't start out with it. It became more apparent as I further educated myself. And I touched on it in the third reason, and that is the entire insulin process. So going from being insulin resistant to being insulin sensitive and being fat adapted. So that's why I went further. So I took the intermittent fasting to, okay, let me go into the keto diet, because the insulin control is what controls the craving. And while I can get my emotional eating under control, the cravings are a different story. So I want the craving under control as well. And I want my brain to function without being so dang focused on food. And the way to do that is to get my brain to use ketones, because there's plenty of fat on my body, which means then the brain has plenty of food, of energy to tap into whether or not I eat. So that's where people claim, which is true, but when people say that they have greater clarity, it's tied to that transition when the brain starts using ketones for fuel instead of carbs, instead of glucose. So the education process got me to the point of, yeah, I want that. So that was my fourth reason. Dang it. Okay, let's go ahead and have a reason and a half. So 1.5 reason. This was number 5, but it should be really number 2. I screwed this up and I'm not redoing all these videos. I totally forgot this. I can't believe I forgot this. So while I love to eat, I hate preparing food, and I hate that we have to eat. Like it's just a waste of time. Like I kind of view it as a waste of time, even though I've been such an emotional eater and it's been a crutch the majority of my life. So my relationship with food just has been really out of whack. But intermittent fasting, which means smaller feed window, means less meals. So I love that. I do want to get myself to 1 meal a day. I really want that, because the simplicity in sitting down to prep and eat 1 meal, to me, simplifies life. It it saves on time. It saves just on everything, to be able to just have 1 meal a day, or not have to eat so much. So I'm very happy that I'm getting closer to that. And I'm not thinking about food so dang much. Talked about the craving, but I'm not thinking about, oh, what am I gonna have for breakfast? What am I gonna have for lunch? What am I gonna have for dinner? And that entire process. So intermittent fasting and fasting, I love it. When I do my 24-hour fast, it's just so nice, because I eat one time and a whole 24 hours, I don't have to worry or think about food. So I'm looking forward to getting myself used to the 48 and 72 hours, to where I don't have to cook, I don't have to prep meals. That is just going to be a very beautiful thing. And the fact that the simplicity of that is tied to all these other health benefits, it's just perfect. There you have it. Those are my 5 reasons why I decided to commit to intermittent fasting, and then became obsessed with it. And it's something that I plan to do really for the rest of my life, because as it so happens, the older you get, the better intermittent fasting is for you. So score on that. Okay, so if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to the channel, because one of the follow-on videos is going to be my actual progress into intermittent fasting. So what it was like for me. The reason why I make these videos is to be an example. One of the things that I teach is how to find your own solution. Part of that in any sort of goal setting is to know your why. So I wanted to explain my why, and I explain my why in a lot of the things that I do, so you understand the driving factors behind what I do, and that you learn that you need to discover all the driving factors behind what you do, because that is what's going to turn on the switch to get you to really be committed at what you're doing. All right, well, I will see you in the next video.